we create the monsters. We create the monsters.
What a bar.
Yeah, it's like we have created a system that, because at the end of the day, we're all human beings, you know, working toward a common goal, but we put artists on such a pedestal where everyone else is kind of like their minion, their servant, to like keep them on. And it's like, when that's not even healthy for them to feel that way.
No, for sure.
You know?
For sure.
Because...
And the public will do it as well, too.
Oh, yeah.
Like, when you have success, all of a sudden you're great.
Oh,
you can't do any wrong.
You can't do anything wrong.
How can it help? Like, you become babied in many ways.
Yeah.
And that can get to your head.
It's not, I mean, a lot of people don't survive fame. I think even the concept of fame is something that a lot of people think that they want, but it's a tough position.
Natalie Prospere, thank you so much for doing this with me. It's an incredible honor, an amazing manager and executive. I'm going to read this here because it's worth reading.
Thank you.
But let me just talk about the list of past and present clients that you got.
Yep.
And it's founded with the Outliers, is the company?
Yes.
Exactly, with Paris.
Yes.
And you have a plethora of superstars on here. We're going to start with the incredible Dima.
Yes.
Dima, some might argue, is the best producer of a generation. I think you would argue that he is.
I wouldn't argue them down. I agree.
He's the GOAT.
Yeah, he is.
Exactly. Yeah. And you got a very good argument in your favor, and we'll get into that.
Yep.
But you also have as clients Grammy Award-winning John Kersey.
Yes.
You got the prolific songwriter Varn Wade.
Darren,
You've worked with Camper.
Yep.
You're working with Buddy.
Yes.
Worked with Lucky Daye, who you worked with when he was nominated for 4 Grammy Awards. And that same year, you guys, your clients collectively were nominated for 18 Grammy Awards.
Correct.
So you partnered with Walt Disney Group and Andscape to launch Good Company Records.
Yes.
And you founded that with your clients D-Mal and John.
Correct.
And one of the first signees is Samara Sin.
Yes.
Now, your clients have had multiple #1 billboards, Grammys, Oscars.
Yep.
The success and track record is incredible.
Yeah.
I had to say that intro, and I never do these intros with people here.
Yeah.
But I thought it was super important to do it with you here because you deserve your flowers.
Thank you.
I don't care what these people say.
Thank you.
When you're making your list, and shout out to all those people who made that list for Power Players.
Let's talk about it.
But it's not valid. It ain't valid unless you're on it because you've done a plethora of amazing things.
Thank you so much.
It's awesome to have you here. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ruiz.
I wanna start in the beginning. Mm-hmm. Just tell me about your upbringing. I know you come from a family of musicians.
Yes.
Tell me a bit about that.
Okay, so I was born and raised in Boston, Massachusetts, home of the Celtics, Red Sox, Patriots, Bruins, all of the championship teams.
Whole bunch of winners.
I had a really great upbringing in my city. My parents are from the Caribbean. My mom is Jamaican, and my dad is from a tiny island in the Caribbean called Montserrat, where he was Calypso king on his island as a teenager, competitively performing as a Calypso artist. Well, my dad plays every instrument that there is prolifically, self-taught. When I was born, he moved to Boston when he was 18 from Montserrat. Met my mom in the church. My grandmother, it's so funny, we've been shooting some content with my family, and my parents have varying stories on how they actually met, but apparently my grandmother set them up in the church.
Do they both collectively agree that it was your grandparents that set up?
It was my grandma.
Church?
Yeah, it was my nana. Rest in peace. Okay. Yeah, how it happened and what the intent was is there's varying stories, but they met in church, and so they fell in love, got married. I am their firstborn. I'm their firstborn child, only daughter. And so by the time when I was born, my dad was in the church as a minister, as a musician. His uncles were also a part of our church music family. So the house that I grew up in Boston literally had a recording studio in our basement.
Amazing.
This is in the 80s. So before I even knew who I was in the studio watching my dad create these albums with gospel artists in the city. So that's in the 80s. And he went from being a minister to becoming pastor and then bishop of our church. And growing up, music was just such a part of our lives. I don't feel like I had really any choice. I kind of got thrown into it. It's like, you're going to take piano lessons. Must have been, 6 or 7 years old. It's like, you need to learn to play something. I was born, I always had a singing voice, so they put me in the choir really young and started asking me to sing lead, which I'm not a spotlight person. That's why I ended up in management, because as much as I love the art form and I love music, I tend to like to be behind the scenes. So that, it was a process for me because I pushed back against it, singing lead in the choir, especially because I just was like, there are way better singers than me here. I want to just sing in the choir in my alto section and hold it down. And they're like, no, you're the pastor's daughter. You know, you need to be a leader and you need to step up to the plate because you're really good. And I'm like, cool.
And how old were you?
So I started singing in the choir really young, but singing lead, I was probably like 9, 10 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, okay. 9, 10 years old. As I'm, taking these piano lessons, and then I picked up drumming a little bit, and we actually formed a group in my church. It was 5 of us. Our group name was YOP, Youth of Promise, and we would perform at other churches and like go up and down the East Coast to different churches, singing songs, recording songs. So yeah, music has always been a part of my life. It really came through my dad and that side of the family. Yeah. Everyone on his side of the family plays instruments and sings music. And I also have to give credit to my grandfather, who was a part of my upbringing as well. He is, to this day, he's 78 years old and he's still a DJ. He is the resident DJ at the Bob Marley Club in Universal Studios, Orlando. If you ever go to Universal Studios, ask for Angus Prospere. He's been there for 30 years and he still plays 4 nights a week there. So he introduced me because I grew up in the church, and really my parents were pretty strict, so we only listened to gospel music with the exception of a couple of artists, the Whitney Houstons and the Bob Marleys. But anything secular,
yes, it's not secular.
Yeah, we weren't allowed to listen to in my household. So that's where I have to give credit to my grandfather and my aunts and uncles for introducing me to the other genres of music.
Was it very, were they like, yo, let me put you on to some of this very quietly, don't tell your mom and dad?
Yeah. Well, my grandparents, they're the OGs. Okay. So they didn't have to really sneak around. It's like, this is what we're playing in our household. So when she's over here, this is just a part of what we do.
Got you.
So, very early on, reggae music, dancehall music has been a part of like my music taste. But gospel was what I was rooted in because we were in church 5 nights a week, most weeks. Wow. Yeah. Really? And music, growing up in a Caribbean church, yep. Music was, a lot of people came to our church because the music was so good. We had like the best musicians, the best choir, the best song service. And yeah, it's such a part of my foundation, but never did I imagine a career in it. It just was a part of like our lives very naturally.
What's crazy is that time and time again, anybody who I speak to who's in the R&B space, more times than not, they come from the church. Like Daniel Caesar, Matthew Burnett.
Yes.
There's so many of them that come from it.
Yeah.
I want to say Daniel Daye, maybe from Division. There, a lot of people from Toronto come from the church, and them as well. I don't know about Daniel Daye, but I know Danny and Matthew.
Yep.
They couldn't listen to secular music either, as well too. But it's amazing that the foundation comes from church.
100%. Yeah, it's a great foundation, and because it's tied to your spiritual walk as well, I think it's even more deep rooted for us. It's a way for us to communicate. It's worship. It's like how we thank our Creator, our God, for all of the blessings that we have in our lives. So yeah, it was a great foundation.
I've been taking in Transformation Church as of late.
Yep.
A little bit. I do enjoy it.
Yep.
Yeah. It's I went to, so I'm a Roman Catholic. Born and raised, but the music wasn't like that when I was growing up.
Yeah.
It was like very kind of mundane.
Yes.
It wasn't a vibe like that. Yes. But like going to Transformation was always, seeing it. I was actually there in Oklahoma one time. It was amazing to experience that. Yeah. It's just a different type of energy to it.
Yeah.
But that's, so what age are you when you now start moving into, well, I know that later on in life, you get into the music business. Space. It's always been a part of you, but that's not the first thing that you do as a career. It's something totally different. Tell me about that.
So typical Caribbean parents. They're like, you're going to college. And I was like, to be honest, I didn't perform really well in high school. Traditional education just didn't work for me. Yeah. It's not because I wasn't smart. I just was, I think, understimulated. Yeah. And I think very early on, I knew that I was here to do something very particular. I just didn't know exactly what it was, but I knew whatever it was wasn't going to require pre-calculus. It's like, I don't think I'm going to need this. You know, I don't think I'm going into anything that's going to require this, right? Yeah. So, school was really more about socializing for me.
Yeah, it's like that for a lot of students.
Exactly. But it's really where I think, so I went to college, you know, barely graduated from high school, 1.3 GPA. I think my teachers and guidance counselors all just really liked me, so they kind of like pushed me through.
She's cool.
Yeah, she's cool. Get her out of here.
Yeah, you get her.
But I had a really high SAT score, so I applied to all of the schools that I really wanted to go to, the Temples and the Clark Atlantas, and you know, you need a certain GPA to get into schools like that. But I'm like, my parents are gonna make me go to school, so let me just try.
Right.
Obviously didn't get into any of those schools, but because I had such a high SAT score, other schools just offered me admission into their schools. So I ended up being accepted to a school in New Jersey called Bloomfield College. It's a private school, and it's near Newark, New Jersey. And I wanted to get a little bit further away from my parents. I wanted to be close enough that I could like drive home on the weekend if I needed to, but not close enough that my parents would like pop up on me on campus. Because honestly, I was just over the church life, and I'm like 18 years old, and I want to just explore a little bit.
And super strict as well too.
Super
so you
strict.
Get to be
exactly. I'm like, I need a little freedom. Yes.
Yeah. You kind of really don't know who you. I mean, you know who you are as a person, but I mean, it's a very different world when you live by yourself.
100%.
Yeah.
And I do think that asking an 18-year-old who hasn't experienced anything in life to make a decision right out of high school as to what they're going to do for the rest of their lives is kind of crazy.
Yes.
It really is. It's like you don't really know who you are, like you said. Yeah. So, you know, and you're asked to pick a major, and it's like, this is what you're going to major in, and this is the foundation for what you're going to do with your career. So I'm looking through everything, and I'm like, I'm fascinated by people.
Yeah.
I love people. I'm a people person. I'm fascinated by just human behavior and what makes us tick and what makes us who we are. So I'm like, sociology sounds cool. Let me major in that, because I wanted to study psychology and religion and like just all the things that make people do the things they do and makes us all who we are. So I majored in sociology, and I actually performed really well in college. I was like on the dean's list every semester because I was interested in the subject matter. But that's where I really think I honed in on my leadership skills. I was an RA my sophomore year through graduation.
Sorry, what's an RA?
A resident advisor.
Okay.
So it's a student that lives on campus that is responsible for the dorm.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's an interesting role to have because obviously it's like college and people want to have fun and have a good time. We had a dry campus, so technically you're not supposed to be drinking on campus. Right. And we're the snitches. Like we're the police of the dormitory.
Yeah.
So I wanted to have a good time too, but I'm like, this is really paying my room and board. So
okay. And
I enjoyed just being in the RA program because they just had a lot of like training and a lot of things that I knew it would be useful to me later in life. Yeah. So thankfully I was able to find a way to, and thank goodness I had like residents that liked me and respected me. And it's just like, do whatever you want to do. Just don't put me in a situation where I have to report you, because I can't lose out on this position and this role that's taking care of my room and board because you guys want to. So I had to do all my bad activity off campus or at other schools. But I became an RA sophomore year. I pledged a sorority. I'm a Delta. A lot of people don't know that. But I pledged Delta Sigma Theta my senior year of school. I was class president of my graduating class.
Oh, wow.
And my first management experience was actually in college. So my sophomore year, I became friends with a couple of guys that attended my school, and they were part of a dance group. 6-man dance group, 6 guys from Newark, New Jersey. They were really good. It was like pop locking, breaking, like they were competing. Okay. They were like known in the county as like the guys. Envy. Shout out Envy. Right? Yeah. Okay. So they were like, Nat, we would really love for you to be our manager. And I'm like, what does that entail exactly? What do dancers need a manager for? Like, you show up and you dance and you do your thing. Yeah. What could you possibly need from me? And I quickly learned how much creative people need people like us to just help. It's right brain, left brain, right? Like they're just not great with logistics. They want to be able to focus on their art and the creativity and have someone else handle all of the other things. So we had a great run. They did a lot of TV performances. We were on like BT 106 in Park, Wild Out Wednesdays, and MTV Spring Bling, and toured up and down the country really competing as dancers. So I was able to get them in a music video. This was like my senior year, and we worked together for years. But in my senior year, I have an uncle who was a location scout. He was working with a lot of major directors back then. So he was location scouting for this Tierra Marie video that Jay-Z was in. And they were shooting in New York. Yeah. And they're like, can the dancers come? I'm like, yeah. So they got these cool cameos in the video. They're like, we're in a video with Jay-Z. I'm like, yeah, that is pretty cool.
That's dope. So, and you're managing them at this time.
I was managing them.
Is this the video that, is this what was the song?
Are there any girls around that know how to make a girl feel?
There's the vocals.
Yeah. Make you feel good. Yeah. It was her biggest single.
That was her single.
Yeah.
I remember at that time it was Tierra Marie who was the one. It was like Rihanna was secondary.
Yes, she was.
Yeah.
Yes, she was.
And then, she took off. But, okay, so, and that was like, if I'm not mistaken, she's walking down the streets like in Brooklyn or something 100%
like that. In Brooklyn. Yeah, you remember the video.
Yeah.
We can pull it up and I'll show you my dancers, their little 2-second cameo. Okay, it was a big deal for us,
Yeah, for sure.
In the dance community, they're like, you're in a video with Jay-Z.
What was that experience like?
It's so fulfilling to be a part of creating moments like those that, the rest of the world, like our families get to see it and the people in our lives. And it's like, they're so proud. It's, we weren't making any money, but it's just, you feel like your work is not in vain.
Right.
All of the work that we're doing, it's like culminates to this 1-2-second clip in a music video. But back then, music videos were a big deal.
Mattered.
Yeah, they
big
really
time.
Mattered. So, but it just kind of.
And for our generation, because I think probably we're on the same age, but our generation, for me even specifically, the music video is how I was introduced to the artist.
Yes.
It wasn't really the radio for me.
No.
Because I was always been a visual learner. I went to school for media arts, for film.
Yep.
Right. And so that was always the medium for me. And in Canada, we had much music. We didn't have MTV until I never had MTV at home. But a friend of mine who I lived with when I was like 17 years old, he had MTV from like a satellite, MTV2, and that's what they were showing all the music videos.
Yep.
But that was the way that you would discover an artist.
100%.
Right? And so it was like, it was massive for our generation.
Yes, it was.
So that 2 seconds in the video is huge because that's going across everywhere in America.
Yeah, it was a big deal.
Right? So and this is also a time where like everything is centralized through one medium.
100%.
So that could be, of course, like that's going to be a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's my senior year, and then it's like, okay, real life now. You're not living in this dorm. You don't have room and board. You have to get an apartment. You're graduating. Real life starts. And I'm like, okay, I have this degree. I was hired maybe 3 months after graduating by the state of New Jersey in their child protective services. So I was a social worker, a caseworker for DIFAS, the Department of Youth and Family Services. And they put me right in the investigations unit where we were the first responders to the alleged abuse and neglect of children. Mm-hmm. As you can imagine, it was a very emotionally taxing job. The things that I saw in that 2.5 years that people did to children, from sexual abuse to physical abuse to, it's like the worst of the worst human beings, because children are defenseless. Yeah. And it was a really tough role to have to conduct these investigations. You're sitting with the child who's being abused, and you're asking, you know, them the questions to essentially just collect the information to take to a judge to determine whether or not this is actually happening. But you also have to sit with the alleged perpetrators.
I was going to say, do you sit with the parents too?
Yes.
Wow.
And yeah, it is really just disheartening when you realize how messed up people can be in this world. Just thinking about some of the cases that I had, it still like hurts my heart, because it's like, I don't know whatever happened to those kids, you know. But just because you can have a child doesn't mean that you are suited to be a parent. Yeah. So
did you know going into this job that this is what you were? Did they train you?
No,
they don't. They don't give you.
You have an idea, but I think most people go into those kinds of roles wanting to help. You know, because it's like these things are happening to children, and if we can be kind of like hope in saving them from these kinds of situations, then that's what you go into the job for. But then you get into it and you realize how flawed the system itself is, because sometimes I felt like I was doing more harm than good in removing some of these children. So coming from a Caribbean background and just being a first generation American with a lot of friends who have parents from other countries, I think there's a fine line between discipline and abuse. Our parents, as I've just experienced more life and just seen more, I realized like most of our parents did the best that they could with what they knew and how they were raised. And essentially they do want the best for us, and they think that by disciplining us in whatever ways they saw fit. Some of it was probably not appropriate, but that's all they knew. But essentially it's just to keep you from getting into trouble.
Right.
So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I had a lot of cases where I'm like, I don't think we should remove this child. I think we need to maybe put mom and dad and some parenting classes and explain to them that in this country, this is against the law.
Okay.
It's not like this everywhere, you know, but these are the rules that you have to play by. You have to find another way to discipline your child. But the state of New Jersey, because so many kids were like, there were kids that were in our care that died because they were, you know, parents are addicted to drugs and all kinds of things, and kids end up like, I had a case where a kid went missing for like 2 months. Nobody knew where this child was, and they found the kid in the basement, dead, starved to death.
Oh, wow.
By their parents. So, they were very just not lenient at all. If there's any substantiation of abuse or neglect, it's like remove the child. And sometimes I just was like, when you have immigrant families. But there's
nuance to this.
Yeah, there's so much nuance.
So they didn't
look at that. And what ends up happening a lot of times with immigrant families, in you know, these situations, we always look for a relative or someone in the family to place the child with. But when you have immigrant families coming from other countries that don't have any other relatives here, the kids end up in foster care. And then the foster care system is just a huge mess. A lot of people do it for the money. They don't really care about the children. And as someone in the investigations unit, you're asked to conduct this investigation, turn in your report, you take it to court, they make a decision as to what's happening to this child, and then you have to just move on. And I would get in trouble a lot with my supervisors because I'd be calling and checking on the kids. And they're like, you have to move on from this case. Like, this is not your case anymore. And I'm like, so I'm supposed to just pass this off to someone else, because a lot of the caseworkers, a lot of the people in the system don't really care. It's a check for them. And I'm like, no, what happens in this situation will determine how this child's life plays out. So it's really something that we need to be more precious about. But after 2.5 years, I was so depressed and so emotionally worn down that I decided that I couldn't do it anymore. And so, but in the interim, as I'm working for the state, I'm introduced to a boy band from the UK. So because of what I did with the dancers, my uncle he was friends with this guy in London who had this group that was signing to Universal Geffen, and they were moving from London to New York. And my uncle was like, the boys need to know Nat. she's super connected. She managed these dancers. Like, she can help get them shows and just like kind of introduce them to the community in the New York, the tri-state area. And so I went on their MySpace. My uncle told me about them, and he sent me their MySpace page, and I was like, these guys are really, can I curse?
Yeah, of course.
Really fucking cool.
Yeah.
They were like the British B2K. Yeah. So I love their music.
What year is this?
This is 2007, 8-ish. Yeah.
Okay.
They were all incredible dancers. I like their style. I like the way they dressed. They were having a lot of success in London. They went by Fundamental 03 and then they shortened their name to FDM, but they were like a big deal in London for a short period of time. So I was excited to like have an opportunity to work with them in some capacity. So they do this deal at Geffen. I'm introduced to them. This is when everybody had T-Mobile sidekicks. So we start like chatting on AIM, and I learned that they're all of Jamaican descent like me.
Y'all know nothing.
Yeah, you guys are too young. Y'all don't know about the sidekicks. But I'm like, I really like these guys, and we like formed this friendship just on AIM. Yeah. So when they were coming over to New York a couple of days before they were supposed to move out, their manager at the time calls me and is like, Nat, I need a huge favor. Their housing situation fell through. I need somewhere for them to crash for a few days until I figure out where they're going to stay. I'm a single woman living in a 1-bedroom apartment in Orange, New Jersey. I've never met these guys in person. And I'm like, it would be really crazy of me to let these 3 strange men come stay with me, even if it's for a couple of days. Of course, a couple of days turns into the whole summer of 2007. I said yes. And
what made you say yes? What was it there?
I might be a little crazy, if I'm honest. If I'm being honest. Yeah. So there's something, I'm like, they seem cool. If anything happens, my uncle will kill everybody. So
there you go.
It's fine.
Not so crazy.
Yeah, and it's only supposed to be for a few days.
Yeah.
But they came and we formed like this really great friendship. And I was really just a fan of their music, and I wanted to see them win. And I'm like, if I can be of any assistance, if it means you have these earbuds in my living room for a few days, it's fine. But they ended up signing a production deal with Neo and Compound. And this is 2007 when Neo is like the biggest singer-songwriter in the game.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Britney Spears records
100%. Yeah, he was killing it.
Yeah.
So I was just invested in their success and seeing them win. So I was going to my day job in social work during the day, and then I'd come home at night, and Neo was living in New York at the time, so the guys were going to the city to work on their album with Neo. So I find myself back in the studio like I was as a kid, and I'm just like fascinated by the whole process. And I'm like sitting like this with Neo, and he's writing a song and asking me like, do you think I should say it like this? Or like, what if I do? And I'm being cool about it, but I'm like, I love this.
It's fucking Neo asking me. Yeah.
I love this so much. So I already knew that I wanted to leave my job. I had this apartment, I had my car note, and I'm like looking at my bills. I'm like, okay, I think I was making maybe like 48 grand a year, which back then coming out of college, it's like a decent salary. I work for the state, I have good benefits, I have health insurance, all those things. But I told the boys, because they really wanted me to be on their team. Their manager had kind of like disappeared on them, and I'm like filling all of the roles for them in their careers. So I'm like, I would love to come on as your assistant. If you can come up with 30, 35 grand a year, I can make that work. But I'll just quit my job and I'll work with you guys full time.
Okay.
Because what I also noticed with them as artists, they were not advocating for themselves. So because they lived with me, when we were having our own conversations away from the label or the people that were, they were signed to in these different various deals, they kind of didn't feel like they had a voice.
They didn't have a voice. A lot of artists go through that. They feel like they got to do whatever the 100%. Label, especially in that time.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
So now they're having conversations with you without the label telling you their grievances.
Yeah. And I'm like, speak up.
Right.
You are the captain of the ship, but you know, you're coming from another country, and ultimately you want the people who are investing in you, especially monetarily, to be happy with what you're doing, even if it's inauthentic to who you are and what you want to do. So I was like, I'll speak up for you. I just need you have to make it official. Right now, I'm just some girl you live with. I need to have some kind of official role where it's appropriate for me to speak on your behalf. Because I'm like, this is not right.
Yeah.
I also didn't like the way that they were being spoken to. I'm like, you guys are grown men. You're not children. And it just is mind-blowing to me, some of the practices that are so commonplace in this business, where people just are rude, you know, and just demeaning, and everyone just kind of turns a blind eye to it. And I'm like, no, this is not okay. So they end up moving the whole operation to Atlanta. So I was going back and forth between New Jersey and Atlanta for a while. Like once a month I would go down there just to check on them. And
this is official now, you're managing them?
So no, I never ended up managing them. Yeah, I'm not managing them.
Okay.
I did end up leaving my job, but what actually happened was, we may or may not have to take this out. They ended up overstaying their visa, and they got kicked out of the country.
Statute of limitations.
You're right. They overstayed their visa. They got kicked out of the country. I had quit my job. They were back in London. They had worked on this EP. They called it The Pudding. I don't know why. That was a terrible name. They're like, the proof is in the pudding. Not a cool name.
Sorry guys.
Sorry guys, not a good name.
Yeah.
But the songs were fire, and they were shooting some music videos and doing like a press run around it. And they told their label at the time, like, we need Nat to come out here and do this run with us. So I went out to London for a few weeks and was like running around with them, putting this EP together and helping them on the rollout side of things. But eventually the group disbanded. You know, one of the members started kind of doing his own thing, which groups, I always say, they're not meant to last forever.
Yeah, it's only a matter of time.
Yeah. It's only a matter of time. So I was doing everything in my power to try and keep them together. I'm like, you guys have something really, really special collectively. Individually, you could have success as well, but collectively, you have something really, really special.
Yeah.
But, you know, it didn't work out. So I'm back in Boston now, because after I quit my job, my brothers came to New Jersey and packed up a U-Haul full of my stuff, and I went back home for a bit. So I'm back in my parents' house, didn't really know what was next for me. They're like, well, you have your degree, and we have these parent loans that have to be, you know, you have all these loans, so you have to figure out what's next. And I didn't want to be in social work or anything in that field anymore. So didn't know what I was going to do. A friend of mine, Farah, that I met through the guys from London, was coming to LA. I'd never been here, never visited. I don't know anyone out here. She's like, I'm going out to LA to work with this producer, Harmony Samuels. I don't know if you're familiar with Harmony. Yeah.
I know Harmony.
She's like, I'm going out to LA to work with Harmony.
With Susan Carroll.
Yes, I love Susan.
Susan's dope.
She's so dope.
Cardi introduced me to Susan.
Yeah, she's super dope.
Yeah.
And I knew Harmony because he actually is responsible for the guys, FDM, getting their deal at Geffen. He had done all of their early records. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I'm like, I'm a Harmony fan. You're going out to work with Harmony? She's like, yeah, I know you're not working right now. Do you want to just come to LA with me for a couple of weeks while I'm like working on this album with him? And I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing anything. I need to get out of here. So I packed my bag. This is in May of 2010. Packed bags for a couple of weeks and came out to LA. And after a few days, I called my mom and I'm like, I think I'm going to stay out here for a little bit.
What'd she say?
My mom has actually always been supportive. She wants me to be happy, ultimately.
That's great.
Yeah, she wants me to be happy. And I think she always trusted that I would figure it out.
Yeah.
I didn't know exactly what I was going to do. I started off as a PA on music video sets. My uncle hooked me up. Yeah. My uncle, Ray K.
18-hour sets.
Long days.
Yeah.
My uncle was really good friends with this director, Ray K, who was doing a bunch of big videos back then. So he would always put me on his jobs as a PA. And so I started with that. I quickly realized, coming from Boston, an inner city where you can get on a bus and train to get anywhere, I'm like, this is 2010. This is like pre-Uber. So you need a car out here.
Yeah.
So I shipped my car from the East Coast out here, and I was PAing for a little bit. but I was also like hanging around Harmony. And eventually he ended up hiring me to be his operations manager at the studio at BOE. This is in 2010. So I was there for like a year and a half working with Harmony. And this is when he's doing like Chris Brown, and he was having like a moment. Yeah, back then, Ariana Grande. And I remember, ironically enough, one of my really close friends, A-Rod, this was actually my first client as a proper manager in the music business. I was working at Harmony Studio. A-Rod is working at our college in admissions, and he's always been into music. Even when we were in school, he was like songwriting and recording, and he saw that I was out here and was like, I want to come visit LA. I was like, they call me Moses. They're like, you were the first one to go out there and like part and see us all come out. So he came out to visit and ended up in the studio with Harmony and co-wrote The Way for Ariana Grande, which was top 10 record. Yeah. And he's like, now we're having conversations about a publishing deal. And he's like, you have to be my manager. And I'm like, I don't know how to manage a songwriter. And he's like, well, I don't know any of these people out here, and you're the only person I trust, so we'll have to figure it out together. So A-Rod, still one of my best friends to this day, but he's had a lot of success as a songwriter, and he was one of my first clients, but we were friends.
But see, I say this all the time. It's not as important in the beginning to know everything.
Correct.
It's more important that you trust the person 100%. That you're working with.
Yes.
I've seen it time and time again where artists are coming in with managers that don't have a whole lot of experience. Mm-hmm. But if they're really passionate about the artist,
yes,
and they got their back,
yes,
they'll figure it out.
Figure it out.
You give them the time to figure it out.
100%.
But you go down the line of, whether it's yourself, it's David Ali, it's myself, it's Byron Wilson, it's Dave Free.
Yep.
Pat Corcoran with Chance, like all these people. These are managers for Kendrick, Kalani, Chance, Jesse. Like, none of them were managers before. In fact, if you're looking for the superstar manager, it's gonna be tough.
Yes, it is.
It's because you're gonna more times than not be the priority unless 100%. There's a whole team.
Yes.
All right. So the trust factor in this business is way more important than anything else.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's amazing that you guys. And so you built that with him?
Yeah, we built that with him. We did his publishing deal, and this is where I really learned publishing, because we had an opportunity to get a bigger deal somewhere else, but Cobalt was in the conversation, and I learned the difference between a co-pub deal and an admin deal. Yeah, and he got a really good admin deal.
In 2010?
2010.
Okay, he had a hit.
Early. Yeah.
And Cobalt was doing, they were one of the first to do the admin deals.
Yes, they were.
For those who don't know,
tell
me the difference. What's co-pub and what's admin?
So co-pub typically is a 50-50 split between the publisher and the writer. Typically, there's all kinds of co-pub deals. I've seen it span the gambit of in perpetuity owning 50% of your copyrights, which I think is absurd.
Especially back then.
And admin is a set period of time where they administer your publishing and collect a smaller percentage. I think his split was like a 90-10 split.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it
back
was like
then,
a really,
amazing.
Exactly. Yeah. It was a really good, but
generally,
you own
they're like 85-15, 80-20.
Yes, but you own your copyrights.
You own your copyrights.
Yes, so that is the difference. Ownership is the name of the game, ladies and gentlemen.
100%.
So it was a really smart, I didn't know how smart of a deal it was, but just based on, what I was learning at the time, I'm like, the advance wasn't a huge difference. And I think a lot of times, people are after that big, quick check, but they don't realize what terms they're signing up for.
Yeah. But you had leverage, though.
Yes, we did. We had a hit record.
So they're going to come and be like, 100%. Let me give you the admin deal.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And who put you on to say, no, this is admin deal is what you need to do?
I'm going to credit Courtney Harrell. She's a really close friend. I'd call her a mentor of mine. Berkeley alum. But just also an astute. She's not just a creative. She's also really astute in business. And she explained to us why it would be better for us. She had a deal at Cobalt, and she's like, this is why you need to do this. Because she had written some hit songs with Harmony as well for like Chris and a few other people, Fantasia. And So she explained it to us, and we were like, yeah, this makes sense. Let's do it here. Yeah.
And the money's less.
Yes.
It's so important for people to know, like, don't go after the crazy bag. Go for the terms. The terms are way more important 100%. For your career.
And most people don't do smart things with the money anyway.
Not in this music business. Yeah, exactly.
It's like
a lot of people don't do smart deals. A lot of people don't do smart things with the money. A lot of people don't realize that half of that check is going to be gone to Uncle Sam.
Taxes.
Yeah, taxes.
Yes.
And then you want to take care of the homies, you want to take care of mom and dad, which is not a bad thing. You want to buy the home, but then all of a sudden the money's gone.
100%. And people don't realize how hard it is to recoup that money. Especially in this day and age.
Well, those co-pos back in the day, they had something called the MDRC.
Yes.
The minimum delivery requirement.
Yes.
They don't do those that much anymore.
Yeah.
Really at all.
If you still have an MDRC, fight your publisher to get that out of your contract.
That's a fact.
Yeah, because it doesn't make sense anymore.
That was impossible to do and to get out of, 100%. Especially at that time.
Yes.
Where a lot of it was, there's a lot of pirating. There was before streaming, right?
Exactly.
So whenever you put out a record, I remember talking about this because the first thing that Jesse did, and I did as well too, was a publishing deal.
Yep.
And I thought about that being the best route for her because she's a songwriter. Mm-hmm. But also I realized really early on working in Canada that I wasn't going to do a label deal in Canada.
Yep.
And I was never going to do a label. Told Jesse we're never going to do a label deal in Canada because if you sign it to Canada, there's going to be a lot of red tape to a Universal or Sony, because if we want to do something in the US, then they got to go to their partners. It's just a lot of nonsense. And working in the music video side, because I had a production company, Mad Rock, I got to see how bad it was with these labels in Canada. And I'm going to keep it a buck. It was bad. It's still not that great. I got a lot of love for people who are working over there, but those deals still are very challenging in Canada, because if you want to do anything in the U.S., for the most part, you have to have a partner in the U.S. So if I sign a deal at Universal, then in order to get visibility in the U.S. or get help in the U.S., you have to have the partnership with Interscope or Def Jam or whoever it is. But then they're only getting 50% of the pie. Right. So why are they going to even treat you as a priority? You're not invested. Unless it's going crazy for you. So I learned that early on, because on the production side, when I had my video production company, Mad Rock Entertainment, we had the grant system, and the labels relied on the grant system. And if you didn't get a grant for a music video, which, back then they were doing, it was like $30,000 for a music video. They give you grants in Canada.
Wow.
Yeah. Up to like 3.2 million. Yeah, it was pretty. It was pretty great those times. But if you didn't get the grant, the label wasn't even putting up the money afterwards. If you don't get the grant, I'd go back to the label and I'd talk to this person over there, and or the manager, the artist. I'd be like, so let's just go to the label, and they'd be like, no, label's not putting up the bread.
That's
like, what
insane.
do you mean?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
You're not invested.
You're not invested in it.
Yeah.
Right? So it was just a. Yeah, it was like I was always looking at that and being like, "This just doesn't make."
It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So, I don't know where I was going with that, but I was going on a tangent because those labels are.
No, we can have a whole conversation about how little the labels do.
So when I was first started working with Jesse, we decided very quickly that we weren't going to do a label deal.
Yeah.
Especially not going to do one in Canada because there was too much red tape.
Yep.
But also because I knew at the time that whatever deal that we did, we weren't going to get a good deal. We were going to get a shit deal because she didn't have any leverage. So because she's a songwriter, we went the publishing route, and we came to LA in like 2014, I want to say. And that's when we met Jemai and Zach Katz, and eventually did a publishing deal over there. Yeah. Which we just, Zach.
Love those guys. Both of them.
They're the best.
Yeah.
And Shani was there at the time as well too.
Yeah.
But Zach comes up on this podcast. Yeah. Every single conversation.
He's a real one.
Everybody fucks with him.
Yeah, he's a real one.
He's a super real one.
Yeah, he is.
He's involved in your career as well too?
We had a really great relationship when he was at BMG. It's actually one of the only times that I was interested in taking a job at a company because I wanted to work with Zach. Yeah. I was like, can I come over here and work with you guys? Because songwriters and producers is really my bag. Yes. I got into the artist thing later, but that was really what I knew. And Zach just spoke my language. And we were just he had such an understanding, and I wanted to learn from him. You know, I really don't have a lot of mentors. You know, there's not a bunch of older, more experienced executives who have reached back and said, hey, I see what you're doing. Come up under my wing and let me teach you something. And Zach was like that with me from the beginning. He was really interested in what I had going on. He saw what we were doing with A-Rod. We ended up doing the Cobalt deal, but we did have an offer from BMG.
Also, it was a BMG
it was a
Cobalt?
BMG,
Oh, okay, yes. Got you. Yeah.
So, we ended up doing our deal at Cobalt, but we still maintained our relationship. And
that's dope.
Yeah, Zach is a real one.
Yeah, he is. I got, till this day, you know, call him for advice. There's 2 mentors that I have in this business. Well, I'll say 3. But he's one of them. Troy Carter. And more of a friend, and we hang out more than anything, is Mark Gillespie.
Okay. Yeah, you have the heavy hitters. Where are my mentors at?
No, I mean, listen, I don't call them as, like, you know, very considerate to when to call these people because I don't want to annoy them or bother them. But fortunate, you know, and that it all happened because, you know, it's just a bidding war for Jesse. But Troy is actually years later. And I met Troy through Zach Katz's Raised in Space dinner with Shara, who we just put a podcast out with. And that's how I met Troy.
Nice.
And this was like maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and he's been great ever since. Philly Mans. Philly. So when do you get to a place where now you're working with, I know that you met Dima, but like when do you start working with an artist?
So my first artist, okay, now I'm going back. So I had A-Rod. I picked up Camper early. I got Camper in 2011. My first artist was actually this kid named Scooter Smith that was signed to Chris Brown. He was supposed to be Chris's protege. Yes.
Okay.
He was the first act signed to CBE. He had a record out called Head of My Class. This is like back in the day where 106 in Park is still a thing. It premiered on 106 in Park, all those things. He was right on the cusp of being the thing. And then the incident happened in 2009 with Chris and Rihanna. And the whole operation got shut down.
Oh, wow.
And so he ended up like going back to school because there was just like this stain on Chris. They wanted to keep him because he's like 16 years old and they just didn't want him to be affiliated and associated with the Chris thing. So he was so loyal to Chris. He's like, well, if I'm not doing it with my big brother, then I'm just going to go back to school. He loved football.
Really?
So he went back to school and was playing football. But he's always been super talented. And after school, he's like, you know, I want to get back into music. So I met him through, do you know Coop the Truth? He's from Canada too.
Oh my God.
Cooper.
This sounds from
Cooper
Toronto?
From Toronto. He may not be from Toronto. I think he lived in Toronto for a bit of time. He's from a different part of Canada, but he's like this extremely talented white kid producer. He's older now, but when I met him, he was like 17.
Name sounds so familiar to me.
He's like a prodigy.
It'll come to me.
Yeah, he's a prodigy. He came up young, under 40 in them, and he was working with Scott Storch as a young kid.
Okay.
Yeah, but I met...
he's working with 40 in them?
Yeah, as a kid. Yeah. Young.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, really, really young.
So you know what? Because there's a homie of mine, I feel like I know Cooper through Aaron A., who was a director.
Okay.
Out in Toronto, did a bunch of stuff for Nelly Furtado.
Okay.
For a ton of people.
Yeah.
I think maybe through him, but his name sounds super familiar.
Yeah, he's having real success right now too. He's super low key.
Okay.
Yeah, he's super low key. He collabs a lot with other producers and does like these packs that ends up on everybody's.
Shit.
Yeah.
That's what's up.
So I met Scooter through him, and that was like my first artist experience. We did it completely. We dropped his mixtape on Dat Piff, and we had features from Eric Bellinger. Eric was my roommate when I first moved to LA, Eric Bellinger.
What?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, it's like the story's kind of like all over the place.
No, that's cool. This is great.
He was my roommate. I learned a lot from Eric as well. He is actually, him and Neiman and what they built independently, I watched it from the ground up. He's actually the first person that I ever saw create a vision board, Eric. And I watched his vision board literally come to life. He put Usher on his board. He put Bieber on his board. And like within 6 months, he had records with these guys, Chris, Usher, Bieber.
Put your vision board up right after that, eh?
I got into the vision boards, and mine have come to life too.
Yeah.
I put the Grammys on there. And all of these things have happened. Manifestation is a real thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thoughts become things.
100%.
So it's, it sounds like, but I've watched it happen.
Yeah.
I've seen it in my own life.
Yeah.
So Scooter was my first artist. We put his project out on Dat Piff, and we had features. Back then, Kevin McCall was the man. Kevin was on it. Mario was on it. Eric Bellinger, Hit Boy, had produced some songs on it because everybody knew him through Chris. He was supposed to be like this kid prodigy. And it garnered a lot of attention. But then he just decided, he wanted to just live a regular life. I've been with Scooter and we still work together and we're still working on music together, but he has a son now. Like life has happened. Yeah. But that was like my first artist experience as a manager. And it was successful. I met Lucky. A lot of people know me because of the Lucky Daye thing. I actually met Lucky at Harmony Studio in 2010 as a songwriter. Okay. He came in to write for another artist, and I was in the control room, and I was just listening to him cut the record, and I'm like, who is this guy? He comes out of the booth, he's like, you fucking with this? And I'm like, do you not want to be an artist? I'm like, what's your thing? Because you're a great songwriter, but you're gorgeous. You have this incredible voice. You have this incredible pen. Like, what's up with, you don't want to be in the forefront? And he's like telling me about what he had going on at the time. And I think a lot of times I've seen this happen over and over again, from the Eric Bellingers to the Victoria Monets to the Lucky Days. When you're a great songwriter, people try to box you into the songwriter thing. And it's like, you're not an artist. Like, people will tell you, like, you're not an artist. And I'm like, no, you're an artist. Yeah. And you need to lean into that.
And so he thought he was just a songwriter?
He had just settled into the songwriting thing, because he's like, nobody really believes in me. It's so funny. The other day, I woke up with a bunch of new followers. I don't work with Lucky anymore. It's been 4 years. I'm actually glad I get the opportunity to let people know that. Just PSA. Don't ask me for tickets. Don't ask me. I don't manage Lucky Daye, and I have not since 2020. But the other day I woke up to like a bunch of new followers on Instagram, and I'm like, what's happening here? And I saw that he was doing like a Q&A on his story, and someone asked him, how did this happen? And he said, Natalie Prospere believed in me when nobody else did.
Oh, that's dope.
And that meant a lot to me, because sometimes I feel like I am written out of people's history, especially when you don't work with them anymore. It's like, I know the purpose that I served in the beginning that kind of set this whole thing in motion, but sometimes, you're forgotten. So when he did that, I really did appreciate that, because I really did. I was like, do not listen to whoever's telling you you're not an artist. And the truth is, a lot of people felt that way about him. His publishers, he's like, nobody sees it for me. I'm like, I think that you could do the artist thing. So, he was living in Atlanta at the time. He had just come to LA to work on music as a songwriter. And I was like, you need to come to LA. I had Camper at the time. I'm working with Harmony. I'm like, you need to be in the mix over here with these guys. Yeah. Camper will tell you, I told him back then, you need to sign D Brown. His name was D Brown. Sorry, he's going to hate me for that. But I'm like, he has something. And they were working on records. He wrote this one record for Mary J. Blige. It was on his first album, Painted, called I Love You Too Much. It's called Love You Too Much. It's a lot of people's favorite song on his first album, but he wrote the song for Mary. And I'm like, this is your record, bro. You need to just keep this record. Record's hard. So I told him that he needed to move to LA. A couple weeks later, he calls me and he's like, I've been thinking about what you said. I'm going to come out there. He's like, I'm on my way out there. And I'm like, when are you coming? You're flying in? He's like, yeah, I'm driving in right now. Oh, wow. So he packed up his car and drove from Atlanta nonstop.
Crazy.
From Atlanta to LA. And he's like, I'm doing this. Like, so we worked together. I was managing him back then. His car got repossessed within a couple of months of him being in LA. You know, you can't keep up with your car note. I don't know how they found him all the way in California, but they found him and repossessed his car. And again, this is 2010 before there's Uber. So when you have sessions all around town, it's like, how am I going to get there? Yeah.
Around in LA.
So for a while, I was like driving him to all his sessions.
Okay.
And then my car got repossessed. I actually have the video of it. I'm going to post it one day because I was like, bro, I might have to go back home. It's not working out.
We need that footage for this podcast.
Yeah, we'll find
put
the
it up
footage.
for the podcast. Cool.
Yeah. My car gets repossessed and I'm like, okay.
What are the chances?
I know, right after.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I brought in a co-manager who shall remain nameless because he wanted to work with me on something. He really believed in Lucky. He had a car and I'm like, if you can help me with this side of things, just moving him around, we can bust down the management or whatever. But I was the one setting up all the sessions and putting him in all the rooms. A few months later, they come and sit me down and say, you know, Nat, it just feels like such and such is the one doing everything. So because I'm not physically present in these sessions anymore, it looks like I'm not doing anything. Right. And I'm like, how do you think you're getting in these rooms? I'm putting you in these rooms, but I have never been the manager that's going to try and hold anyone. The minute you decide you don't want to work with me anymore, I don't even do contracts. That's what made me want to come on this podcast. When your guest said that, I'm like, Chip.
Yeah.
I said, I'm the same way.
Yeah.
I'm the same way.
Same.
I don't want anyone to be here if they don't want to be here. So, yeah. I didn't even have...
And what's a contract going to do? It's funny, I put that clip out, and a lot of people are like on
arguing
TikTok will argue about it.
Yeah,
like,
I know.
I don't know what there's to argue about.
Yeah, there's nothing to argue about.
You're going to get paid, or you're not.
That's it.
And yeah, like I guess you can go to court.
Like, are you going to sue them?
Yeah,
lawsuits cost a lot of money.
It's going to cost me way more bread
than what you're going to get off of these commissions.
Yeah, exactly.
So just let it go.
So what are we talking about?
I mean, I'm on that.
Yeah,
I'm on that.
Just trust the people that you work with.
100%.
Right?
Yeah, I'm on that. So
to be honest with you, I've done contracts, and those are the ones that don't work.
Yeah.
I haven't done contracts.
And those last.
Those are the ones that last.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an honor system.
Exactly.
Yeah, we need to be more honorable.
But to this point over here is like, because you're not there face to face. It's like, what do you think?
Yeah, that's a whole. No, we can get into that whole.
Yeah, like what do you think? I'm just like chilling at home doing nothing. Like no, I'm setting up the place.
100%. I don't think people realize.
All I think about is you. I put my health like second, because all I'm doing is thinking about you.
That is how that's how we do it.
Yeah. And
it doesn't necessarily work in our favor a lot of times.
Yeah.
Yeah. As you experience
very rare.
Yeah, very rare. Yeah, I decided, it's fine, but maintain my relationship with him. Still was putting him in sessions with my producers and whatever. So
he comes with the manager, says we don't.
Yeah. This isn't working.
But you're still helping them out?
Yep. Yeah.
Why?
We're friends. I value my friendships over work. The management. Like, I don't care about the title.
Yeah, you're a way better human being than that. I would never do that.
And I just thought he was so dope.
Yeah, okay, fair.
Yeah, I'm like, when you have producers like the Campers and I think that songwriting is like such a lost art. I don't think there's a lot of people that craft good songs. So when you have a producer that's as good as they are, you need to pair them with people that can match what they do musically with the pen.
Fair enough.
So I'm like, yeah, I still need you over here.
Okay.
So, and years later.
You know what, too? That's the power of a woman and the beauty of a woman, because you take the ego out of it. Us men is very difficult to take. That
is
ego.
A fact.
That's why this business is.
That's a fact.
All the way fucked up.
That's wwhy the world is fucked up.
Yes,
the male ego.
Yeah.
I think it's responsible for a lot of the ills of the world.
Yeah. Definitely in this music business.
Oh my gosh, it's rampant. Ego and greed.
I saw you in that Music Business Worldwide and
Yeah.
you were talking about, they say women is emotional.
Yeah.
But you're like, I think it's more men that are emotional. I couldn't agree with you more.
Thank you for being
We just don't know how to
honest.
deal with it.
Thank you for being honest.
Yeah.
I see it every day.
Yeah.
It's so unregulated. It's like when I'm being emotional, I know when I'm being, I can take myself out of it because it is, I think, fundamentally just a part of like womanhood. You know, your hormones can be all over the place. It's like, I know when I'm thinking irrationally. I know how to watch my thoughts. But men, the emotions just kind of like fly off the handle. It's completely irrational. And like you said, most don't know how to deal with it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I say it all the time.
It takes
I'm like,
a lot
it's a
of
false
work,
narrative.
a lot of patience.
Yes.
You know, to get that under control.
Yeah.
And you hope that with age that
you mature into it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that ego is the thing that makes it even more volatile sometimes.
100%.
Because you're never wrong. You don't want to apologize. You don't, you know.
Yeah.
You're kind of on your high horse and you don't want to come down off of it.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
There was a point in my career where I was like, I feel like it was so much easier to work with men. I'm an only girl too, so I've always had this thing where I'm like, I work better with men. They're just they're more direct and you kind of know what you're getting. And then it's like, the older I get, the more I'm like, that's not true. It's not necessarily true.
Yeah.
People are who they are. And there's like you said,
nuance people
to
are
everyone.
People. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
There's a lot of nuance.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah.
So your ego's out of the equation. You got
Yeah.
Lucky Daye and Camper working together.
Yeah.
When does D-Mal come into the picture? Because I think he comes in at this time as
So
well.
D comes in.
And I'm excited. Sorry, I'm just excited to talk about D-Mal because talking about my experience with him, and it's very limited, and just the people that know him. I'm not saying he doesn't have an ego.
Yes.
But I am going to say he is easily one of the nicest people in this business.
He's a very nice guy.
He's a good dude.
He is.
And I got to give him his flowers.
Yeah.
And he's so, seems to be humble and like in interviews and soft-spoken. He's incredible, but
it's pure.
It's pure, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pure with D. He really loves music from the pure place.
You tell, he loves music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The ego thing, I think he knows that he's really good.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
He knows he's really good. And D, I met when I first came to LA. We've all been friends because they were all signed to Rodney. Him, Harmony, Tommy Brown,
Harmony was signed
Victoria Monet,
wow.
Jukebox. Like they were all a part of the Rodney thing early on. So I met D early in my time out here, and I just was always blown away by his talent. I'm like, you are exceptional. I have Camper. And Camper is exceptional too. Like I've been around, Harmony's exceptional.
Yeah.
You know, I've been around producers but I'm like, this guy has something very, very special about him. So we became friends. We used to hang out because a bunch of them had this house in Glendale.
211?
211! It used to be over there.
No. I did my research.
Okay.
I wasn't around.
Yeah.
211.
Yeah, we had some good times over there. So we were friends.
Let's talk about that for a second. What's the magic about 211? Because I think it's like it's not talked about a lot.
It's a collective. So who was living there? It's him, Ba, Mikey, Osinachi. I don't know if John was ever their roommate, but he was over there all the time. But they were like producers and engineers and like guys in music, but they were just young and out in LA, and they're all really fun guys. They like to have a good time. So they would just throw these like parties and we would go over there and hang out.
To be fair, what I heard it was from John, an interview he did with Pensado.
Yes.
And he talked about, I don't think he lived there.
No, but he was there.
But he was there all the time.
Yeah, we were there. We were hanging out over there.
All musicians.
Yeah, all musicians.
Making music.
Yeah. So we became friends, and I was like a fan of his work. You know, a lot of people don't know that he produced Feedback for Janet Jackson. And yeah, I'm like, you're exceptional, but you're so low key. Like a lot of people didn't know what D-Mal even looked like for a long time. Yeah, because he wouldn't post pictures of himself on his Instagram. He would post like pictures of the studio. And so we were friends, and this had to be 2017 when Camper fired me for the second time.
The second time?
Yeah, Camper and I have had a back and forth for decades.
Okay.
But yeah, he had let me go. And when
Sorry,
I
what
was
year did you say?
17.
2017?
Yes.
Oh, this is after the
Yes.
best part.
Yes. This is after the best part. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. We should get into that conversation.
Sure.
Yeah, Kemper and I decided to go our separate ways, and I love Kemper so much. We're still very close friends, but he always had this this feeling that like you don't need any other producers. Like I'm your guy.
Okay.
You know, and it's really interesting, and I think a lot of managers have experienced this because I'm friends with other managers and we talk about this.
Yeah.
A lot of times clients can get territorial with you, not taking into consideration that you're only getting a small percentage of the money that they're making.
100%.
But they feel like, you know, they're all that you need.
Yep.
We're going to do this together and we're going to make all this money together. You don't really need anybody else. And Kemper has been very successful. We made a lot of money together. But he wasn't a fan of the idea of me managing other producers. He was fine with songwriters, he's fine with artists, but he's like, I'm the only producer you need. So when he let me go,
competition? Okay.
yeah, he doesn't even want to feel like there's competition because in his mind, it's like no one can compete with me. So you don't need anybody else. Cool. In hindsight, I never should have subscribed to that, but we were so locked in that I'm like, cool, I got you, Kemper. I'll focus on you.
Okay.
So when he let me go, literally within 3 weeks, D-Ma hits me like, hey, when you have some time, I'd love to catch up. I want to talk to you. And I'm like, absolutely. Myself and Paris, we pull up on him at the studio and he's like, I really just feel like I need someone, like a proper manager on my team. And I'm just like, yeah, because what's happening? Like, you're one of the best in the game. At that point, he was actually ready to quit music because he felt like for some reason he wasn't being called into the rooms that he thought that he should. And like nothing was really panning out for him.
Okay.
He was already like getting out of his situation with Rodney. But he's like, yeah, I don't understand why I'm not being called into these rooms. And I'm like, well, I don't think a lot of people, you're just like not on people's radar like that.
Right.
It's not that I think when your name comes up, you're like every producer's favorite producer.
Right.
If you talk to a lot of the bigger names of producers of this generation and ask them who their favorite is, they're going to say D-Mile.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah, but he just didn't have he's not someone that the labels were calling or the managers when they were going in on stuff. So I'm like, he saw what had done with Kemper and he's like, I just feel like I need somebody like you who is in those networks and in those conversations to like pull me into stuff. And I'm like, everyone needs to know who you are. Are you kidding me? So I'm like, absolutely would be honored to work with you. I think that you're incredible. I immediately was like, we need to build on your profile a little bit.
Right.
You might need to come outside a little bit, but I got you. And our next meeting, I was like, what are you excited about? Because again, when you're as exceptional as someone like a D-Mile is, I'm like, who are you working with that you are excited about the music with? And he's like, me and Lucky have an album.
Oh,
and
okay.
I'm like, as soon as he said that, I just knew. I'm like, this shit's probably so crazy. I'm like, I need to hear something. First song he plays is this song, Karma. And like 20 seconds in, I'm like, D-Mile, stop the music right now.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
That's the first song he plays?
That's the first song he plays.
Knew.
Yeah, I'm like, it blew my head off. I'm like, okay. I'm like, you can ask him. I said, oh, you guys are trying to go to the Grammys.
You're trying to go to the Grammys, yeah.
You guys are doing, I'm like, nobody is doing this kind of R&B.
He said,
D is just, he really is humble.
Yeah.
He's like, he's like, he knows it's great, but a lot of people did not see the vision. They had played the music for other people, and they're just like, they couldn't grasp it because it's so retro, but it's like, they're like, it's not going to work right now.
Because of, yeah. You know how many times people will be saying that shit, but it's always
they don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
I was like, they're wrong. Because back then, we have like Bryson, it's like trap soul vibes or whatever. And this is just so left.
It's black.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, no, this is going to cut through.
Yeah.
And immediately brain starts like working overtime. I'm like, okay, how is this coming out? Like, what are you guys doing with this album? He plays Karma, then he plays Roll Some More. And I'm like, okay, what does Lucky want to do? And he's like, the album was done, sequenced everything.
Oh, done.
The album was done. I'm like, can I have this music to live with for a little bit? And I was like obsessed with it. I didn't even want to hear anything else when I got my hands on Painted. And I'm like, what's the plan? And he's like, I think Lucky's trying to figure it out. You should talk to him. And again, because I had maintained my relationship with Lucky all those years, even though we weren't working together, it was super easy for me to just be like, yo, let's meet. We went to lunch at Nat's Diner. I brought Paris along because I'm like, he has all of the things. It just needs a little bit of tweaking. I'm like, someone needs to come in and style him. Somebody needs to package it. So, and he had already changed his name. I'm like, yeah, we need the right partner for this. He was actually finishing his BMG publishing deal, and he was having other meetings with publishers. He's like, I'm like, it's really important for your publisher to believe in you as an artist.
Yep.
So I started taking him around. Yeah, I started taking him around to meetings, and people were blown away by the music. So I was confident that wherever we ended up on the pub side, because he was like, I need a manager. I need you. Because he didn't really know what to do. He's like, I just do the music. I'm not sure what the best way is to go about getting it out there. He was having some conversations with like Tidal and whatever, and I'm like, let me move it around a little bit. But I knew that I needed to at least put it in front of Tunji, because what he had done in R&B from Bryson, beyond R&B, because like Khalid he's not an R&B artist. He's a pop artist.
Sure.
But like what he was doing in black music, I just was like, I think Tunji's going to get it, because Tunji's an artist first. So his ear is great. I'm like, he's going to be blown away by this music. And Tunji's like, send it to me, Nat. And I'm like, no, I need to play it for you in person. With Lucky there, I need to pull up. And I had to wait. How
important was it to play it that in person?
So important to me. Because I need to look you in your eyes when you are, I need to feel that you feel what I'm feeling when you hear this music.
Yeah. I think that's important, not to cut you off, but I think that's super important, because these are potential partners.
Yes.
You don't want to just send them something.
No.
And not understand how they feel about it.
100%.
The only way you're going to be able to figure it out is if you're in the room. So if you have those relationships, go and do that. 100%. If you don't, try and figure out how to get in the room with them and play them the music. And let them hear it for the first time in that room, because you're gonna get a real
I agree 100%.
That's
he kept asking me to send it, and I'm like, nope, I'm not gonna send it. Everyone's sending you music. I'm like, I need to come and play it for you in person. We pull up on Tunji, one song in, he texts me like, I need to sign this. And I'm like, told you.
And this is when he's at RCA. He's got his own situation there.
So Keep Cool was a brand new thing. He had just signed Normani.
Yep.
He had signed Van Jess, and Lucky was his third signing. We had another offer on the table from another label that, again, offered more money. And I was like, no, we need to do this with Tunji.
Can you say who?
Yeah, because she's not there anymore. It was Warner.
It was Warner?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they had offered more money. But
Wait, Julie?
No.
Oh, okay.
Rainey was there at the time.
Okay.
But we took a meeting. I won't name this executive, but we knew that we weren't going to end up doing the deal there, because transparently, there was a white executive who knew that we were also in a conversation with Tunji, and the way that they tried to downplay Tunji, we weren't going for it as soon as we walked out of the meeting, because it's like, Tunji's never going to shit on another executive. He's going to say, this is why I think I would be great for you to,
Right.
But the things that happen in this business sometimes are so, it's like, you don't have to do that. Just tell us why we should be here versus, dragging down a black executive who we actually have a great relationship with, who's doing amazing things.
That's crazy that, I don't even
turned
understand
me off.
Yeah, of course.
Lucky too. We were like, nah, you don't get to do that to Tunji.
Yeah.
So that was like a huge part of our decision making as well. But we just entrusted Tunji's taste, the team that he had built around him. You know, they were all really excited about Lucky, and it felt like the best. I had a great relationship with Peter Edge already because of what we had done. Yeah, love Peter.
Peter's good
love
people.
Keith. We had already had success together with her through Camper. So I just felt like RCA and Keep Cool was the best home for what we were doing. And it was. So yeah, we ended up doing the deal with Tunji and Keep Cool. And to this day, it's probably some of my proudest work. I really feel like the way Lucky came into the game was so impactful for R&B. If I'm being honest, that is what changed the trajectory of D Miles' career, my career. Like, that's the thing that changed everything for all of us. Like, when Bruno heard that, that's what made Bruno call. Like,
oh, really? Okay.
Who did this?
Let me rewind for a second, because what I'm gathering from a lot of this here is that you're very specific when it comes to building a brand of the artist.
Yes.
What are the key things that you're looking for when you're building the brand? Might be different from I mean, it is different.
Absolutely.
But how are you looking at this?
I think it all starts with getting to know the artist authentic, because it has to be authentic to who they are. I don't believe that it is the role of a manager, a label, a publicist, or anyone to tell an artist who to be.
Yes.
I think it is our job to find out who they are and figure out how we can collectively package and present them authentically to the world. So I think it starts with like that, getting a real sense of like who this artist is and what they feel like their place is in the world. I feel what a huge part of what's lacking in music right now is like real purpose in what people are doing. I think a lot of artists with social media and all these, it's a popularity thing. It's not like deep rooted in any real purpose.
Right.
Like, I believe that God, the creator, whatever you call it, that higher power, sent certain individuals here to use music as a vehicle for messaging. And a lot of people don't have any real sense of why they're doing music. It's like, I'm talented and I'm good at it. So I want to be popular. I want to make money. I want to get girls. I want to get the cars. But it can't be just about that. Those things come as a result of you living in your purpose. But I think it's really important to align with artists that have a real intentional purpose for being in this thing. So
and you've done that your entire career.
Yeah.
You're able to identify
that. matters to me.
Yeah.
Big
How
time.
often does somebody come to you that you think is incredibly talented, but you're like, no, you don't have it?
There's so much talent. I say it all the time to people. I'm glad to be, again, thank you for having me on this platform, because
thank you for doing this.
Yeah, I feel a little.
Do this.
No, I don't. This is my first time doing this.
This is great. Yeah.
I feel a little
I just
bit
love how transparent you are.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know any other way to be.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm also careful how much I, say, because I don't ever want it to be misinterpreted. I feel like some people may see the things that I post on my Insta story and I can come off as like, you're so bitter. Like, it sounds like you hate the music industry. I'm like, there's a lot of it that I don't like.
Yeah.
Just I've had a lot of experience in different facets, but I do think that the popularity thing, it should be a byproduct of you being great, because also people are not working hard enough to be, and that's the other thing. People think Lucky just came out of nowhere. He'd been honing his craft for 20 years.
Yeah.
Honestly, to be as good as he is.
For sure.
And it's funny, I had another artist at the time that I was managing, I won't name, but as a manager, when you have multiple artists on your roster, because at a point in time, I probably had like 15 people on my roster, producers, songwriters, and artists. And I'm like, audio push and tone stits, and I'm like trying to juggle it all independently. It's not like I'm not a part of a management company with a bunch of people helping me do all of this.
How many people you got with you, working with you?
So it was really just me and Paris,
You and Paris?
at the time. And Paris, big shout out to Paris Cole. If you don't know her, you need to know Paris because she is a legend. She had Lucky. She was his creative director and stylist and co-managing Lucky with myself and Sam Waters. But she also had Ari Lennox at the same time during the Shea Butter Baby era.
Crazy.
Where Lucky and Ari were the two R&B new king and queen.
Yes.
So she's like juggling the two of them. But yeah, I'm like, I still have D-Mile, and like his whole thing is picking up, and I have Camper, and I have like this whole squad of talent. But I had another artist who was kind of like seeing what was going on with Lucky and felt like he should be getting some of the same looks that Lucky was getting. And it's like, and he's incredibly talented as well, but Lucky was just ready. Right. He had worked and prepared himself for this moment. So when it was go time, he was able to just go. And it's like, I think it's very, it's never a good idea for artists to be, you shouldn't compare yourself to any other artist because everyone's journey is just so different. And just because you feel that you are as talented as someone else, a lot of things are, it's just timing. There's a lot of luck. People don't consider how much luck plays a part in the success and when the success happens and how it happens. It's, sometimes the stars just align.
Absolutely.
And that's what happened with
and
Lucky.
When you compare yourself to, like, you robbing yourself of the joy of your own
100%,
experience as well, too.
100%. Yeah. But the Lucky thing, first album, 4 times Grammy nominated. We hit the ground running. I knew very early on, like, his strength was in live performance. I feel like there's a lot of artists in the game who are great studio artists, but when it's time to really get out there and sing live, you can't.
Very few in this day and age. Yeah, very few.
So I got a lot of pushback because from the beginning, I'm like, even if it's two pieces, he needs to go out with live. The music that D-Mile created with Lucky deserves a real live experience with live music. And obviously when you're going out with a band, out the gate, the cost just
skyrocket.
And it's like, I know, but we need to invest. And even as a manager, where it's like, you look at what it costs to go out on the road, and it's like, we could cut back and send him out to track and maybe make some money that we can commission off of. But I was just so invested in building his touring business because I knew how good he was live that I'm like, we'll take the L for now. Okay. Let's do it this way.
Does Lucky know that is he having these conversations? Is he, okay. I don't know, I'm asking. Is
Here's
he just like.
the truth. Okay. A lot of artists don't want to be in those conversations. Yeah. They want to focus on the creative side of things, the music, the songs themselves. They are looking to the people like us to advocate for them and make sure that we are packaging and putting this whole thing together in a way that puts them on their best foot. Right. And
that shit costs money.
Yeah, it does cost. Yeah. And, the artists are not going to push the label for the tour support. And that's really on us. That's magic. Yeah. So first tour, he went out with Ella May. This is another thing that I don't think enough people understand about the role of a manager. So Paris and I, and again, she has Ari and Lucky at the same time, and Lucky's on the road. We budget for a tour manager. Tour manager is out on the road with him. 2 days in, he's like, I need y'all out here. I feel like they're trying to sabotage me. Something's up with my sound. I don't know what's going on, but he just was really uncomfortable without us being there because he knows we are going to go hard to make sure that all his shit is tight. And the label's not paying for managers. Once the budget is set, it's like the tour manager's out. The manager doesn't need to go. So if you're going, it's coming out of we were paying for our own travel, our own hotels. Yep. I'm thinking we'll just go for a couple of shows to make sure that he's comfortable and then come back home, because I don't feel like managers need to necessarily be on the road with their artists.
I don't think so. I think you go to the major markets.
You go to major markets and do all of the
And you maybe go to the first 2 or 3 shows.
Yes.
I had the same. It took 4 years for
Yep.
Jessie to, and I remember having this conversation with her in 2020 because she was not comfortable
Yep.
with us not being on the road with
Yep.
her. And then it got the only, because it's Byron Wilson and myself managing her. And the compromise was, okay, both of you don't have to be here, but
One of you has to be
gotta
here. Yes.
Yeah, and that
Yep.
was the compromise
Yep.
for like a long time. And then in 2020, we're like, just the major markets, because my job is not effective on the road.
No, it's not.
And I'm also taking up a bunk on the bed, like it could be used for a crew member or a
100%.
band member.
Yes.
It's not effective.
I agree.
You be traveling and you don't, I don't have reception on
I
certain,
know.
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
I know.
I gotta get on phone calls.
Yeah,
I
road
remember
life
being
is not ideal.
I remember being on tour in Europe.
Yeah.
We were on tour with Party Next Door.
Yeah.
This is this is his last tour before the one he just went on.
Yep.
And I'm on a phone call with another manager
Yep.
at like 2 or 3 in the morning.
Yep.
Because that was the time that was the call that had to happen because it's 10 a.m. Eastern.
Yep.
And I'm doing a deal. I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
not trying to be awake at 3
Yeah,
in the
I
morning.
know. Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
And this was like, and I was on that whole tour. But
Yep.
yeah,
Yeah.
it doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't.
But they don't feel comfortable.
No, they don't.
Because, and I do get it.
Yes.
I get it a little. I get it because I think a tour manager as well, more times than not, tour managers are just trying to get the job done.
Yes.
A lot of tour managers don't understand the nuances of an artist.
Correct.
And they kind of just like shrug their shoulders
Yeah.
or whatever, like, yeah, like they're
Yeah.
being difficult. But it's like,
Yeah.
nah, I mean, the artist wants something specific.
Yeah.
And the artists want to fight that with
Yeah.
the TM because,
Yeah.
like, who are you really? I
Yeah.
just met you.
Right.
So it's like,
And to be fair, tour managers have a lot on their plate.
they got a lot on their plate. Yeah, they do.
Especially when you're traveling with a party, you know, the music, like you're responsible for so much. So
That's true. It's
sometimes
very
the
true.
artist is looking for like that special attention that
And
the
they're not
tour
gonna get
manager
it.
doesn't
TM's
have the
not gonna-
capacity to give them.
Yeah, especially if it's them by themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I took a lot of pride. I love the road. You know, there's a part of me that's like waking up in a new city every day. And there's something that's really, really rewarding in a way that you don't really get to feel unless you're there when you are in a room surrounded by strangers
Yeah.
singing these songs that you helped put into the world. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think there's any other feeling that compares to that real life experience
Yeah.
of watching people love the songs that you had sitting on your computer for 2 years before anyone ever heard. And it's like, I wasn't wrong.
You're right. You're right.
I wasn't wrong.
Right. You're right.
Y'all were wrong. Y'all
Validation.
didn't see it.
Did you ever have the experience when you were on the road and there was a record that the fans just absolutely loved?
Yes.
And then you're like, no, we got to turn this into a single.
Is there a tequila? I'm on a sober thing right now, but if there was tequila, like, can I take a shot to that?
You got some?
It is so frustrating when you are trying to communicate this to the label because they're like, oh, the numbers are not, oh, the streaming numbers. And I'm like, listen, this song right here, at every show, this is a fan favorite. We
Yes.
need to put something, we don't have to spend a ton of money on a music video, but we need to momentize this song. I personally still feel like Painted deserved so many more moments that never happened because labels like, okay, it's time to move on. Next album. And it's like, we haven't even maxed out on this.
Did you say momentize?
Yes.
I've never heard that term
Yeah,
before.
that's a good word.
That's fire.
Yeah, momentize.
I'm gonna use that.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. So they move on.
Yeah. Yeah.
You'd be
It's
like,
like,
no.
you know, they decide. The management role is it can be so challenging because no one knows what's happening as intricately as you do. I'm like, the fans are in
Good
my
managers.
DMs. Good managers.
Not like yourself.
Good
Yes.
managers.
Yes.
Yeah. I am like in it for real.
1000%.
So you might want to listen to what we are advising we do here because we're in it in
I've
a
been
way
sober
that
for
you're not.
2 years, but that tequila as well.
I
I
mean,
got into crazy fights because of
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And so even the way that the budgets are spent and how we spend the money and what we do, it's like, you know, we don't control the pocketbook.
I said I remember I won't say who,
Yeah.
but I remember telling someone at the label.
Yeah.
I said, it's kind of when I was like fed up.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, you think about, and this is something that all managers who are coming into the business should know, but the label is thinking about the artist
Yeah.
for maybe an hour or two
Yeah.
out of the week in their meeting.
Yes.
You as the manager are thinking about your artist 24/7.
Yeah.
So how are you telling me what to
Right.
do with the artist
Right.
when you're not on the road, you're not thinking
Yeah.
about the strategy at
No.
all times?
You actually don't know the artist.
You don't know the artist.
Yeah, we
Outside
know
of me
the-
bringing the artist to the label every once in a while. And yet, granted, they will have their thoughts about how they do things, and sometimes they're right.
Yeah.
But a lot of times they're not.
Yeah.
And also, I really can't blame it either, because product managers got like 10,
Too many
20
artists.
artists.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
at a time.
Yep.
And nobody's off anymore.
Yep.
Everybody's kind of, going at like there is no off season or
Yep.
whatever. I don't even remember what the term is called, but
Yep.
off cycle.
Off cycle.
Everybody's on cycle now because of social media.
Yep.
But yeah, like
Yep.
I just remember just getting into it and being like,
Yeah.
I think about, I'm so in the weeds
Yes.
of everything.
Yes.
Yeah. Listen.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're the engine.
Yeah.
And I don't think people respect that position enough,
Yeah.
because, the artist is entrusting us
Yeah.
with their career, and we are literally the buffer between them and everyone else. So a lot of times we're the ones that are in communication with the artists, and we know what it is that their ultimate goal is.
Yeah.
So we are trying to drive the train a certain direction, and then the people with the pocketbook have a different vision, or they're comparing. I can't tell you how many times I'm like, yeah, but Lucky's not Bryson. Lucky's not Khalid. He's like his own thing.
Yeah.
I remember very early on saying to some people at the label, like, I know he's a Black artist, but we should treat this like we would treat a Bruno Mars. This is before we ever knew that we were going to have anything to do with Bruno. I'm like, if you're listening to the kind of music that he's making, I think we have to look at it through that kind of lens. He could be a pop artist if we do this the right way. Because Bruno's an R&B artist with pop numbers.
Yeah, with pop numbers.
Yeah. And I saw that same, I'm like, why can't
Only
a Black
thing that makes
artist
him a
have
pop
that?
artist is because of the numbers.
100%.
He's an R&B artist.
He's an R&B artist. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't want to box Lucky into any of these other things just because he's Black. I think that he has the potential to be as great and as popular as someone like a Bruno is.
Yeah.
So, but there's a lot of things that go into why Bruno, he is the guy.
Yeah.
He is the hats off to Bruno Mars. I mean, beyond his exceptional talent, he's just really smart.
Yeah. He's best artists are in there at all times.
He's really smart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
He's out the way. He's not,
Yeah.
It's not a popularity thing for him. He's just like, I am great, and I'm going to share my greatness with the world.
It's like that.
It's just like that.
That's fine.
Yeah, yeah. But there is a thing that happens with many artists where in the beginning, it's really easy to work with them because they trust your guidance.
Yes.
It's like, I have this theory when so many artists saw what we did with Lucky, and so many artists have come to me to work with them. And my thing is always, I think I said it to you, if I am not the Phil Jackson to your Kobe or your Michael, let's not do this, because I need that kind of trust.
Yes.
I need
Absolutely.
that. Yeah, I don't want to, it shouldn't feel like an uphill battle to get you to do things. My favorite work relationships are when, and I'm not saying I have all the answers, I'm still learning and
No, of course.
growing every day. I feel like I'm just now tipping the scale of like, now I'm really, because, a lot of people are like, now you've had so much success. I'm like, it's cool. I see so much more for myself. And I'm not saying that I have all the answers, but I know that I'm good at what I do.
Hell yeah. Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah. And
own that shit.
yeah, it's
man.
important.
Yeah, you're good at what you do.
Thank you. Yeah.
I think you're going to touch on it, but I have kind of a similar theory. I feel like you got like 18 months to 2 years
Yep.
before the artist kind of starts to tune you out a little bit. And I call it the going away to college. Like you're not living with like you're tired of your parents. We'll go.
Yes.
I got more answers than you do.
Yes.
And the good ones come back around and you figure it out. You have a real honest conversation
100%.
because the relationship with the manager and the
Yes.
artist is a very personal
Yes,
one.
it is.
And it will be falling out.
Yes.
But you got to come back around and
Yes.
figure out. And the best ones are, okay, what's the end goal?
Yes.
Because you're not going to have all the answers.
Yes.
And they won't have all the answers.
Correct.
But we got to figure this out.
Yes.
Together.
If we decide to. Yeah.
If you decide to.
Yeah.
And those are the ones that are going to win.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. But I say it, I'm friends with a ton of managers. And I think it happens organically because not many people understand. As much as I share with my mom or my family or my friends, they don't really get it. They just can't believe. When things go sour between me and some of my past clients, my family is like mind blown because there are some managers, and I think the more I experience, the more I understand why managers create distance between them and their artists. I'm very much everybody's at my house on Sundays. I'm making dinner. You're staying on my couch.
You're still doing that?
Now I don't.
Okay, yeah.
Now I don't. And I feel like my client-manager relationships are a lot more healthy now because the boundaries are necessary.
I got to ask you a question to help me out.
Yes.
Because I'm actually in that place right now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I'm going to put this in here.
Yeah.
But I think I will. My girlfriend asked me, she goes, about a client.
Yeah.
She said, do you even like this person? I said, I love them.
Yeah.
She's like, you don't even say goodbye when you leave his shows or anything. I'm like, no, that's my thing. I ghost.
Yeah.
And I also said, but I do want to create the distance.
Yes.
Because it was too close with other artists.
Yes.
And I feel sometimes the respect.
Oh my goodness.
Goes out the window.
Yes, it does. They don't value it.
Right.
Yeah.
And then so now in my career, I'm like, the question is like, okay, well, how do you do that where they don't feel like they're neglected?
Yeah.
Because I feel like sometimes some artists will be like, well, you're not there for everything.
Yeah.
But like, no, but you don't understand what, like, I'm not communicating with you, but I'm communicating with the day-to-day, and I'm making sure that the plays are moving forward. I'm on the phones making sure that the fees are higher this year than they were last year.
That's where the trust is so, I don't like artists micromanaging me. I don't need to report every single thing that I'm doing for you every day. Yeah. That's actually a waste of my time.
It's counterproductive as well.
It's counterproductive.
Yeah.
I think ultimately artists want to see results.
Yeah.
And as long as they're getting, we come up with a plan, we come up with goals, and as long as those goals are being met, we don't need to really kick it like that. We don't. We don't. Yeah, and it's been better for me that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of my artists today called me and he had called me yesterday and I didn't answer. And I posted something on my story I said I'm a leader, I'm not a manager, And he's like, I didn't know if something was going on with us. I've been trying to get in touch with you. And I'm like,
are you dissing?
When I tell you, you have no idea how many calls I've made on your behalf in the past couple. My conversation with you, I don't have anything to share with you right now. I am working these things on the back end to set these things in motion for you. When I have something to report, I'll come back.
Sick.
We have a weekly call. I'll update you on that.
Yes.
But the accessibility, I think that's why a long part of my career was a very unhappy part of my career. And it's so, people don't know because from the outside looking in, it's like you're having all this success and it just looks, social media, everything looks like it's going great. Amazing, and I'm like, I'm so unhappy. Yeah. I'm running myself into the ground. I'm not taking care of myself because I am so hyper-focused on making sure that my artist and my producer, everybody's needs are being met and neglecting my own.
Yes.
And it's caused, if I'm being honest, some resentment. Because if and when things don't work out, and there's been plenty of situations that I've helped build from the ground up that went on to become successful that I'm no longer a part of, and I don't get to reap the benefits of what I've invested in it. Mm-hmm. And someone sent me something on Instagram the other day that said that self-sacrifice breeds contempt. And it's like, no, the reason I'm so in my feelings about this is because in that process, I wasn't taking care of myself.
Right.
And for what?
At the time, you're thinking like financially.
Yes.
You also
Long term.
but you also care about the person.
And I care.
Yeah.
I care. We can't care about them more than we care about ourselves.
Hard
Because
lesson to
artists
learn.
care about themselves first.
Yeah, let's keep it a buck.
Let's
a lot
keep
of
it
artists are selfish.
100%.
And you got to be in this space
100%.
to be incredible.
Yeah,
To a
I
certain
think it
extent.
needs to be a little bit more balanced out, though.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah, we create the monsters. We create the monsters.
What a bar.
Yeah, it's like we have created a system that, because at the end of the day, we're all human beings, you know, working toward a common goal, but we put artists on such a pedestal where everyone else is kind of like their minion, their servant,
Yeah.
to like keep them on. And it's like, when that's not even healthy for them to feel that way,
No, for sure.
you know,
For sure.
because
And the public will do it as well too.
Oh, yeah.
And like when you have success, all of a sudden you're great.
oh
you
yeah,
can't do any
you
wrong.
can't do anything
How
wrong.
can I help? Like you become baby to them in many
Yes.
ways.
Yeah.
And that can get to your head.
It's not, I mean, a lot of people don't survive fame. I think even the concept of fame is something that a lot of people think that they want, but it's a tough position to be in.
For
you
sure.
know?
For sure.
And I think the smart ones keep real people around them to keep them grounded.
Yeah.
But a lot of times with the fame and success, artists start to push away the people who are honest with them because they just want to keep feeding the ego.
I don't think you can be super successful in this business if you push those people away.
I agree.
More times than not, when you do change, more times than not, when you change your team and your management, things kind of start to go
I
south.
see it all the time.
Yeah, all the
Yeah,
time.
that's why I'm like, leave me if you want.
You try to get
Best of luck. See you on the other side.
Let me go to that point there where you're
Yeah.
talking about when the artist, you're building something with them.
Yeah.
You're building a brand, and then artist decides one day they don't want to work with you anymore. You don't have, all you have is your commissions in your pipeline, whether it's 10, 15, 20%. It gets to a point where you're like, yo, I don't want to do this anymore because I'm building a business with an artist. No shade to the artist that
Yep.
myself, I stepped away from the Jesse business because I just felt like structurally I wanted to go in a different direction. And I wanted to build something of my own with IP.
Yes.
You ended up doing this.
Yes.
And you did this a year ago
Yeah.
with D,
Yes.
John, who we haven't talked a lot about John, but
Yeah.
I've seen Pensado's
Yeah.
place and
Yeah. He's
dope guy.
excellent.
Sounds like
Yeah, he's amazing.
But you guys co-founded Good
Yes.
Company.
Yeah. Well, we had to change our name
you
because when
did?
we went to trademark it, it wasn't available. So we are now Vanta Music. We're going to do a press release soon. So we're Vanta,
Oh, okay.
Vanta
Is
Music.
this an exclusive? We're getting ready.
Yeah, you're
Did you-
getting an exclusive.
All right. Shout
Yeah,
out to
that
you.
is
Okay.
yeah. It's Vanta Music.
Vanta?
Yeah, Vanta.
What does that stand for?
Yeah, it's actually a color that is, if this makes any sense, it's blacker than black.
Okay.
So when you see it in an image, it almost looks like a hole in the image.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a hue of black, but it's like
Gotcha.
blacker than black.
So Vanta Music,
Yes.
you do the partnership with Walt Disney.
Yeah, Disney Music Group.
Disney Group. Yeah. And with Mio,
Yes.
he brought you into the building.
Yeah, shout out Mio.
Yes.
Yes.
He's amazing.
Yeah, he is.
He's dope.
Yes, he
met
is.
him, one of the first people I met here in LA. And now you have a record label, so now you have real skin in the game.
Yes.
Two things about that. One, how important is that ownership and making sure that you have that so you're, if you have success,
Yes.
generational wealth that
Yeah.
could possibly take place.
Yeah.
How important is that? And two, Walt Disney Group isn't necessarily the first thing that I think of or many would think of when it comes to black music.
Correct.
Why them?
Yeah. So we started having conversations about having our own label. I mean, many producers have had label ventures.
Sure.
Truthfully, not many have been successful.
Yeah.
I don't know that creatives make the best executives a lot of times.
Yeah.
So just like mismanagement of money and just like infrastructurally, I think a lot of times it just doesn't work out. But that's what I'm here for. I'm like, D, we are walking into, when you look at Lucky or Victoria and some of the artists that he's worked with, like, there's no one else is A&Ring these projects. Like, we are delivering complete albums to these labels. So the traditional role of an A&R and bring in producers and writers to put together a record, like, we don't need that service from a label. And then as a manager, when I realized how much of everyone else's job I was doing, I'm like, we might as well just have our own thing.
Yeah.
Because we're making pennies, you know, when we really should, based on our contribution versus theirs, it just makes sense for us to have equity in the things that we're building. Equity. You know?
Big.
Yes. So we started the conversation, like 2 or 3 years ago. D was kind of like, D is a studio guy. He's like, I just want to make music.
He wasn't really thinking about doing it.
He wasn't thinking about that.
Okay.
When I first got with him, I'm like, D, we need to start a publishing business. We need to sign some producers to you. Like, and he, because he had the experience that he had being signed to another producer, he's like, being the good guy that he is, he's like, I don't want to have people signed to me. Like, I'm cool to work with people, and he's brought a ton of producers in on projects that he's on. Yeah. But like the idea of like the ranking system where he's like the head honcho and the other, and I'm like, well, we don't have to do it the way the assholes did it. We can do fair deals and treat them well and create opportunities. You have all of this work coming to you that you don't even have the capacity to do, but let's find some people that we really believe in and sign them to you. I think it's a fair exchange. We're giving them these opportunities that are really your opportunities, and they're, you know, being compensated. I think there's a fair way to do this. And he was, you know, we're doing it now, but it took a long time for me to get him here.
To get around to it.
Yeah, because if it's up to D, honestly, he would work with Lucky and Vic and Bruno for the rest of his career and be totally happy, you know? A few other artists, you know, people that he genuinely enjoys working with. That's his happy place. The responsibility of,
and I mean, he's like,
he's good at it. We don't need him to do anything else.
Like, we didn't even talk about it, but I mean, like, you know, Song of the Year back to back.
Yeah.
One with her.
Yes.
The other one, Silk Sonic.
Yes.
Bruno Mars, Anderson .Paak.
Yeah.
Leave the Door Open.
Yeah.
And I Can't Breathe that's Song of the Year prior, right?
Yeah.
And then you get an Oscar as well in the same year as Song of the Year with her.
I'm not going to take credit because I'm not the one making the music, but I will say.
No, but fuck that. Listen, y'all are leaving my girl off of the power player list. And name me another person who has done that.
D wasn't working with her. I knew I was close to the camp because of what I did with Camper. Camper, Volume 1, I will never forget when Camper sent me Focus. I was like, you and her have tapped into something really special here. And I'll never forget when Volume 1 dropped and she was a mystery. People were trying to figure out if it was her. And people are hitting me like, is this Gabby? And I'm like, we were sworn to secrecy. And I'm just like, just enjoy the music. And so when I wasn't working with Camper anymore and I was working with D, I hit Jeff. I'm like, D and her need to get in. And that's when they created the song that won the Oscar.
Okay. Crazy.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, that is, I mean, halfway to an EGOT. It's, a lot of people don't get, when he won that Oscar, we went to dinner because the Oscar you actually get to take home
What's
with
that
you.
feeling like? Yeah.
Oh my gosh. We were so gassed. We're like, let's go to Mastro's and we invited everyone. Lucky, and we're like passing the Oscar around. Like, this is crazy. A couple days later. But yeah, you take your Oscar home. Your Grammy, you have to wait.
You gotta wait.
Yeah. And they just give it to you for the stage.
Yep.
I also think it's really, a lot of people don't understand why I don't attend the Grammys. I started going with Camper.
You don't attend?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a thing with the Grammys.
I got a thing with the Junos in Canada.
And I understand why it's so important to people to be recognized by their peers for the great work that they're doing. I get the concept. I think early on, I went with Camper. He was nominated for R&B Song of the Year one year, and he was up against Miguel Adorn. I'm like, we're not winning this. Like, love Refill by El Varner, but you kind of just know with the politics. For sure. It's just like the nomination alone should be enough. But Camper, being Camper, he's like, nah, bro, like I really feel like I'm gonna get it. And I'm like, okay, we'll go. And I remember how distraught he was not winning the Grammy. And I'm like, I think it's really important for us to not allow, like, we can't use that as the barometer of whether or not we're successful, because it's just so political and it can be racist. I think we've seen that a million times over. Again, yeah, and it's like, why do we keep giving it so much power? Like the Grammys is such a big deal every year. Everyone goes and spends a ton of money on their best designer, everything, and it's just like this whole thing. And I'm an anti person in general. Like whatever everybody else thinks, I don't want. Yeah, I'm a contrarian. Okay. That's such a Jamaican thing to say. You're such a contrarian. I am a contrarian. Yeah, okay. The Grammys is when the label, everyone's so thirsty to be seen next to the talent. Yo. And I'm like, y'all got it, bro. I'll be back. I'll be here doing the work. I actually enjoy the awards that day. It's not really a fun thing to attend. It's a very long day. Oh, I cannot. I am moving around nonstop. It's too drawn out. Yeah. I think it's really rude that most of our categories are pre-telecast. Right. It's like, so essentially you're telling us that R&B and reggae and all the things that we care about aren't really that important. Right. They're, we'll televise these other categories. But this, come early, come at noon, so we can give you guys your little, and then we get into the real. I'm just like, in another theater, like it's just like kind of No, yeah. I don't. What year was that where you're just like, I'm not doing this? The last one I went to was with Camper. He actually won that year, the year that Gabby won, the year that her won. So that was what, 2019? You didn't go for Song of the Year? I didn't go when my own artist was 4 times nominated. Wow. When Lucky was 4 times nominated, I'm like. No, you had like 18 nominations that year. Yeah, no, I didn't go that year. Not just 4, you had 18 nominations and you did not go. Yeah, I didn't go. You know what? A couple of reasons. I was already. That was 2020. That was the first year, the first and only year. Yeah. A couple of things. A couple of reasons. Everyone's fighting over who gets to go with him and who gets the tickets and whatever, and I'm just like. Right. I'll sit it out. No worries. But also my cousin, because a few people, even my friends at the Recording Academy were like, Nat, you need to be here. I'll get you a ticket if you're cool to just come. And I'm like, I'll let you know. My cousin who had been missing, this is my blood cousin who came to LA when I came to LA, ended up getting addicted to drugs, meth, like hard drugs, was missing for months. She showed up at the hospital the night of Lucky's Grammy party, and I just decided to be with her in the hospital that day. Wow. Yeah, she was having her finger amputated from a staph infection that she got from the drug use, the needles. And we found out she was pregnant, and I just was like, for a long time, we thought that she might be dead. So finding her, it was more important to me to be there with her. And then Kobe died that day. It just was like a heavy, I just was like, nah, the day of, people were still like, nah, I got a ticket, come. And I'm like, nah, I'd rather be here. Yeah. I'd rather be here. And a lot of people felt some type of way that I wasn't there because they're like, you need to be next to your artist. Like, people think that it's it's not, we call it in Jamaica being bad mind. I'm not being bad mind. I am just not that pressed. I'm just not. Mm-hmm. I hope that he wins. Some of the categories, I'm like, I don't know why we're in an R&B category with Lizzo I mean, we're not going to win that. Lizzo's huge, you know, like it just is the whole song and dance of it all. I'm just.
Yeah. Because what was the category again? That's
It was.
Contemporary?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's had a different name.
It had a different name.
We were in that category with you guys.
Yeah.
Jessie was in that category.
Yeah, she was.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like.
I knew the same thing.
Yeah.
I was like, we're not.
Yeah, you know, everyone gets so, you know, wrapped up in those things. And I'm like, Grammys also don't come with a check. Yeah. So what exactly are we all so fussed about?
And as a matter of fact, you got to pay for that.
Yeah, you do.
You got to pay for that Grammy.
You're paying for the Grammy. You're paying for your designer. You're paying. People spend a lot of money to attend this show, to be told you're actually not as good as. And I'm like, no one can tell me anything about this music.
Yes.
I think this music is better than a lot of the stuff that we're competing against, but it's a popularity contest.
Absolutely.
And I'm not interested in competing for popularity.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I'll fuck with you, Natalie.
Thank you. Same.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
We're gonna do part 2 for sure.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Done.